All right. Good evening. Base of Menachem Av. We're learning Torah tests, and we are in the middle of Seif Tes. I will share B'zat Hashem the text with you. So basically, after we have explained the whole union of Shleimus Lashon HaKodesh and all the incredible milas that the person can attain with Shleimus Lashon Kodesh, now we have actually gone towards the takeoff, the runway of the Torah, which the Torah started with. And that is that by hearing a divrei Torah from the tzaddik, you receive from him diburim that are b'vchinas shleimus Lashon Kodesh. And because of that, you yourself are zeicha to a shleimus Lashon Kodesh. We said in quite a few places that when the tzaddik achieves a certain madrega that I don't have, because it's way beyond me, like we talked about Yehuda Eloah and Yehuda Torah. We talked about the Shmiras Sabris of those who hold on a very, very high madrega, which is called Yehuda Eloah, Shema Yisrael, we learned it. And there's Yehuda Torah, this is, keeping halacha, normally Shmiras Sabris al pi halacha. So we say the one who really achieves the level of Yehuda Eloah, of the supernal unification, is the tzaddik. But the fact that you are connected to him, you receive from him a bechina of Yehuda Eloah. You also have an aspect of the supernal Yehuda Eloah, even though you didn't actually achieve that particular level on your own. You didn't do it. This is something the tzaddik can do. But being connected to the tzaddik enables you to do it as well. This is something that we see quite often, as the last time when we spoke about the fact that the tzaddik is Shorish Nishmas Yisrael. He is the root of the neshamas of Am Yisrael. Therefore, the connection of whatever it is in the tree influences whatever is growing on the limbs of the tree. So if you are connected to the tzaddik, you are zeichet or bechina of Yehuda Eloah. The same thing happens over here. When Rabbeinu speaks here about the union of Shleimus Lashon Kodesh, he brings us to a certain nekuda that we glanced over in Seif Gimel in the Torah, and that is that hearing is, in other words, hearing the diburim that are the result of Shlomo Hashem Kodesh requires Yiras Shamayim. In Sif Gimel, we said in Sif Gimel, we said as follows. We said, he said, this is the rectification of the covenant. He talked about the ability of man to procreate. So this is the whole issue that when we're talking about the fact that Chava is a euphemism for the Dibur. Chava Isha, the whole thing started with that. So we said that the union of Chava Isha is the union of Dibur. And we glanced over it. There is something that Chazal say about the woman. They said HaKadosh Baruch Hu has constructed the woman in such a way that her hips are wide and it becomes narrower. It says that she's built like a silo. It says, Asa ke'oitzer. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has built the woman like an oitzer, like a silo. Because a silo is built in such a way that it's wide on the bottom and narrowing as you go up. And the reason is so she'll be able to carry babies. What happens is that if you make a silo, that the walls are parallel to one another, straight up. So if there's a lot of weight, it can pressure the sides and the walls may come down. But if you build something in a way that it comes narrower, a silo that is narrower as it comes to the top, the pressure on the walls is lessened. And it can carry the load much easier, much more safely. So it says, Vayiven Elokim esatzela, that he built her. The side of Adam Arishon, and brought her to Adam Arishon. And what is said by that is he built her, so the measure says, Melamed she'asa ke'oitzer, he made her like a silo, like an oitzer. So in Sif Gimel we said, Zeh Pchinas Tikkun L'Shikodesh, Chava Isha, whatever. Says V'izgo B'sar Tachtena, that he closed the flesh of the man underneath. So it says Lo Nitzrecha El Makom Achatach, which is the Dibur. In other words, when Adam Arishon in Adam and Chava first were a two-sided creature, one side was male, one side was female. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu has cut them and separated them, that side, that cut, had to be covered with skin again. He said, Vaisgo Basar Tachtena, that he closed the flesh, he covered the flesh underneath it. It means that he closed only the place where it was cut, so it doesn't leave any scars or anything. So the lotion of Tachteno, so Rashi says he only needed the place of the cut. It says, Lo nitzrecha, the Gemara says, Lo nitzrecha elo l'mkom hachatach, it just needed for the place of the incision where the cut was made. L'mkom hachatach is, if you remember in Sif Gimel, we said this is Chituch HaDibur, Rabbeinu says, that the speech, the words are being cut and honed and chiseled from the raw sound that comes from a person's vocal cords. As Chituch HaDibur, so when a person speaks properly, they say that he's cutting the words properly. Is chitur chadibur. So all this is talking about this. The Chava is, she is the one through which a person is able to keep the tikkun bris. She is the one, if a person is not fortunate, a person chas v'chala can fall in pgam bris. She represents the dibur, because the dibur, the shleimus lashon kodesh, shleimus dibur is tikkun bris, and it comes to the isv even. So he says that Hashem built Chava, asa ka'oitza, he made her like an oitza, like a silo, like a place to keep a treasure. What it means is as follows. Now Rabbeinu says here in the Kudah that we're going to speak about now, she'ikar asiyah v'tikun shaloshim kodesh, the main construction and completion of Loshen Kodesh, Toila b'yiras Hashem yotzarei. It depends on the fear of Hashem, because the fear of Hashem, that's the real treasure. Chazal said that anybody who has Torah doesn't have Yira, he says, woe to a person who has a treasure, which is the Torah, but that treasure doesn't have an entry door. The entry door to Torah is Yiras Hashem. It says, Yiras Hashem yi oitzara. So now we are going to come back to what we said before. We explained that the tzaddikim are gibore koyach, those of great strength, oiseh dvorei, who do and manufacture the dibur of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, lishma b'kol dvorei, and then they hear it. In other words, it is through their ma'asim tovim that they hear the dibur of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so this is, and I said, milchatchila, this is what we said the last time. To begin with, the whole union of Loshen Kodesh, with which HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, emanated from the union of tzaddikim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has consulted with the neshamas of tzaddikim before the world was created, and in succession, because of that, as a result of that consultation which we dealt with the last time, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world with the dibur. So the dibur, the tools with which Hashem created the world, it emanates from the tzaddikim. From what about the tzaddikim? So the Kadosh Baruch Hu, the consultation is the Kadosh Baruch Hu will receive pleasure from the masim tovim of the tzaddikim. So Kaviyachol Kadosh Baruch Hu has borrowed from the hanah that the Kadosh Baruch Hu will get from tzaddikim once the world is created, and he created the world with it. It's a very difficult nikuda to comprehend completely, because we have here past and future that are intermingling. In other words, the Loshen Kodesh is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world with. He created it with because he consulted with Neshamas Tzaddikim. So the Tzaddikim are the origins of the Dibur. But what was the consultation, as it were? Tzaddikim promising that they will fix the world, because we knew that men will sin, and they said, don't worry about it, we're going to take care of it to make sure we'll fix it. That happened later. So the reason for the Loshen Kodesh that happened before, L'maisa, depends on the Ma'asim Torah that Tzaddikim happened later. So we as human beings that, have a little trouble of, past and future and present all being one, it's okay. Because this is our level. By Kadosh Baruch Hu's level, the past, the present, and the future are all one. So when Rabbeinu says that this is, the tzaddikim are the source of Lashon Kodesh, this was before the creation of the world. Now, the world, once it's created, we said the world was created bechavana, on purpose, unfinished, so that we can finish it. Like we said, like, yeah, that food needs to be cooked, and so on, and all the things that we need to finish in this world. It says this, so the Lashon Kodesh needs to be perfected by dealing with the choices that stand before you in Olam Hazeh. So, first of all, we have Shlomo Lashon Kodesh before the world was created. That's one stage. Then we said also the tzaddikim, through their maisim tovim, are creating the dibur of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They created the words that the HaKadosh Baruch Hu uses to communicate with them. This is a second phase of Shlomo's Lashon Kodesh. It's another aspect of Shlomo's Lashon Kodesh. So we said, so you see again, they are initially created the Dibur of HaKadosh Baruch Hu with the pleasure of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so that he will derive from the Masim Tovim. Now the Masim Tovim are creating the words where the HaKadosh Baruch Hu talks to them. That's another time where the Shlomo Lashon Kodesh enables the tzaddikim to hear from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's what we said, Giborei Koach Oised Dvoroi, those of mighty strength that do the Kodesh Baruch Hu's Dibur. The literally Rabbeinu says construct it, they build it, they create it. Lishma b'kol dvara, in order for them to hear what HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells them. It's a very important principle that a person creates the wherewithal, as it were, to communicate with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. For HaKadosh Baruch Hu to communicate with him. When a person is doing Masim Tov, HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaks to him openly. When a person does the opposite lalin of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants, he cannot see HaKadosh Baruch Hu at all. All he sees is, this one is against me, and I can't deal with this one, and this one is too difficult, and this is against me, and so forth and so on. Shlomo's Lashon Kodesh enables to open up the communication line between you and the Kodesh Baruch Hu. And now, and it says, so first of all, they do the Dibur, and then they hear it. They hear the Dibur of Kodesh Baruch Hu. Let's just bring up the text so we can take a look at it. And a quick look here. He says, Gam achshav, now, and tzaddikim want to hear some kind of a dibur from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. First of all, they make tchilas a dibur, and they build it. How? Through their good deeds. To hear dibur from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it is found, this communication, these diburim, that they hear, they nishava v'nivnu, they came into being, and they were built through them, al yodam. They make the dibur in order to hear it. When they want to hear a dibur, communication with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, first of all, they make the dibur, they construct the dibur. They're making the dibur, they're building the dibur, they're building the phone lines, as it were. Okay, and then they hear it. They hear that dibur from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In that, using that holy dibur that they created with their good deeds, HaKadosh Baruch Hu communicates with them. This is up to now. Now we're going to that nekuda of the asoke oitza. Ushleimus hadiber shel lashon hakodesh, in the perfection of lashon kodesh, is tale b'yira. This depends on the Yir Shemayim. B'vchinas asa ka'oitzer, that he made the chava, the dibur, the speech, he built it like an oitzer, like a silo. As we said, Yis Hashem Yotzeret. And in the Tikkunim it says v'yira tale be'udnin. The yira, says the Tikkun Ezra, depends on the hearing. Ishma b'kol dvar. As Chavakuk says, Hashem shamati shemachai areti. Hashem shamati, this is the pasuk right here. Hashem shamati shimacha, I heard your voice. Yareti, I became filled with awe. I became filled with fear. Real hearing depends on the year. There are quite a few ways of explaining what is going on here. First of all, the ears in the face are parallel to the sphere of the bina, of understanding, of comprehending. And the bina is the root of the yira, because the dinim come from bina. But even more than that, I mean, it's not more than that, but something which is more than a gear to us, and that is that if you have your Shemayim, if you hear whatever it is you're told, and you have your Shemayim, you have the door opens to the oitzer, to the silo. When you have your Shemayim and you hear something, you can interpret it. You can understand what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling you. Because L'maisa HaKadosh Baruch Hu is talking to you through reality all the time. But if a person doesn't have Yir Shemayim, he cannot hear what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling him. All he hears is he attributes the dibur to whoever it is, speaks it. Do I agree with him? Don't I agree with him? Is he being nice to me? Or she's not being nice to me? Or, in other words, we're missing the connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is what the lack of yira is causing. So the ultimate shleimus of Lashon Kodesh, that will enable you to hear the Dir of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to recognize A, that you're hearing from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and B, to understand what it is HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling you. It all depends on your Shemayim. Do you have your Shemayim, or don't you have your Shemayim? He says that the yira is tale be'udnin. The yira depends on the ears, on hearing. So Ben says as follows: Nimtze is therefore found. Kshatzadik shomea dibur shel Torah. When the tzaddik hears the dibur of Torah from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, yesh la dibur shleimus. Then the speech has perfection. Ki dibur talo b'yira. The dibur is dependent on yira. V'hu shomea dibur b'chinas yishma b'kol dvar. And how is he hearing? He's hearing the dibur from HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, a dibur that he has created with his own mas and tova. Nimtza misha shomea mipiv be'atzmei. So therefore it is found that if you hear it from the tzaddik himself, mekabel diba eloshin kodesh b'shleimus, you are receiving the diba eloshin kodesh perfectly. In other words, b'yira, you're receiving it with the yira. Kizeh eloshin kodesh, this eloshin kodesh that you hear from the tzaddik, yesh lo shleimus. Why? Because the tzaddik heard from HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. This is not a translation. This is not a step down. This is not a lithograph. This is not a reprint. This is the original. You're hearing Dibur because the perfection of Dibur is Tala in the Yira, and the Yira has to do Tala in the Oznaim. So, when a person hears the Dibur Kodesh Baruch Hu, when a tzaddik hears the Dibur Kodesh Baruch Hu, and you hear the Torah the tzaddik hears from the tzaddik, you are receiving Yishlom Soshin Kodesh perfectly. So, these Diburim that were perfected through the hearing of the tzaddik, now when you hear this affects you. This affects you, it enables the one who hears it from the tzaddik himself, also it gives him aid to step down the taivas niyuf. A person is to tikkun abris, that all the taivas depend on it. But anybody who hears Mishomah Pi'acha, when you hear from somebody else, that heard from the tzaddik, it's already far from this perfection. So it already went down from its original madrega. And this is what we said as follows. It says in the pasuk of Tfilah Chavakuk, a prayer to Chavakuk, the prophet, Hanavi al Shigyonis. Al Shigyonis, Rashi says, on the inadvertent sins. This is a doinus. This is not the sins that we did, purposefully, but those that we fell upon it because we didn't know, we weren't aware. Either we weren't aware that it's Asr, we weren't aware that on Shabbos, it was Shabbos, and these are all shoygig. Shigyonis has to do with shoygig. This is the pasuk that the Rebbe starts the Torah with. And then he says, Hashem shamati shimacha, Kodesh Baruch Hu, I heard your sound. Yaresi. I became full with Yira. Pa'alcha bekerev shanim chayeu. Your action within years, shanim, awaken it, give it life. This is the lashon of Chavakuk. And what is actually, let's see what, if we have an explanation here of this particular pasuk. What it says about this particular pasuk, al pipsha. Okay. In other words, Chavakuk Hanavi was Bekev Chanim Bekev Shanim. The Gemara says, don't say Shanim, years, but say Shnaim. Hashem, in between two, give them life. What it means, Chavakuk Hanavi davened on the great poverty that existed at that time. The two Talmidei Chacham would come themselves with one talus. And that, so Chavakuk says, Hashem palcha bekerev shanim bekerev shnaim. When you have these two Talmidei Chachamim that are so poor, they both have to cover themselves with one talus as they're learning Torah Lishma. So give them revach, give him chayas, give him food, give them sustenance. So Rabbeinu takes this entire pasuk, and now we see how all the sagas that existed in the Torah itself are intrinsic in this pasuk. V'zeh Hashem shamati shemachai yaresi, Rebbeinu Shalom, I heard your sound, your voice. Yaresi, I became full of Yerushalayim. He says, K'shashmiya mepi atzadik be'atzmai, when you hear from the mouth of the tzaddik himself, shehu shomea mepicha, who is hearing it from you. That's the original. He's the one who makes the dibur to hear the dibur. Shemacha, that he hears from you, when I hear that which he hears from you, Kodesh Baruch Hu himself, then I became very full with Yira. The main Yira depends on the hearing, depends on the ears. You're hearing it from the tzaddik himself. The act of hearing it from the tzaddik is putting the Yira into you. That builds the Lashon Kodesh now for the third time in you. We said there's one step before the creation of the world that created the Shlom Lashon Kodesh, with which the world was created. Then the tzaddikim create Shlom Lashon Kodesh, with which they hear from the Dibur HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And now, for the third time, you are hearing the Dibur from the tzaddik. That helps your own Shlemes Lashon Kodesh, your own Tikkun Abris, your own Shlemes Tikkun Abris, Shmiras Abris, by hearing it originally from the tzaddik that heard it from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're hearing it from the source. And now it says, V'az yesh Shlemes Lashon Kodesh. Now there is a perfection and correction of Lashon Kodesh Kanal. This perfection is alluded to in the continuation of this pasuk. Hashem pa'alcha b'kerev shanim chayeu. Hashem, your action in the midst of years, give them life, give them chayas. Rashi says, what it means, chayeu orerehu, wake him up. Give him strength, bring him back to life, resuscitate him. What does it mean? Hainu shenisoyre pe'olcha. What is being awakened, Hashem, is your action. What is your action? Hainu koyach ma'aseh bereishis, the force of ma'aseh bereishis. These are the letters. This is the Dibur Lashon Kodesh the world was created with. The 28 times the Shem Elokim is mentioned ma'aseh bereishis. There's a nisoyra bekerev shanim. This is awakened inside of Shonim, inside of the Shonim. What is the Shon? Chazal says, don't say Bekerev Shonim, ela Bekerev Shnaim, the inside of two. So, Al Pipshat, we're talking about two Talmidei Chachomim that live in such great poverty, they have to cover themselves with one talus. And Chavakuk has to daven to Kodesh Baruch Hu, to daven to Kodesh Baruch Hu that he will that Kodesh Baruch Hu should give them sustenance. But now Rabbeinu, the Gemara says, don't say shanim, say shnaim. Rabbeinu says, you know what? That's not a lutzno. Shnaim mikro. Shnaim mikro. Remember, Shnai Mikra is Shlemus Lashon Kodesh, Shana Kodesh. Al Dei Lashon Kodesh B'Shlemus, that is Nishlam Al Dei Al Yira the Talei Be'udnin, which is being perfected through the Yira that has to do with the Yira, that has to do with the ears. That brings about Nisoyre v'Nitznotz Etz Koyach Ma'aseh Bereishis. It brings about a shimmering illumination of the force of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Ma'aseh Bereishis, Shenivra De'al Lashon HaKodesh. And this is what Rashi explains. Zeh shepel Rashi, Tfila lechavokik al shigyonis. A Tfila lechavokik al shigyonis, that the beginning of the pasuk, the chavokok is davening for what on the shigyonis. The shigyonis is shoygig. He asked for racham for those who are sinning b'shoygig. Ketarguma, what Rashi says? What is that? What's the pshat? Tefillah chavok al shigyonis. Rashi says the pshat of these words are like Yonason would translated it in Lashon Targum in Aramaic. Remember, what is klipas nega? This is the Targum. This is the way that you perfect the Lashon Kodesh, but grappling with the Targum, with the Lashon Targum. So Rashi says, "Tefillah chavok al shigyonis," that talks about Shlom Lashon Kodesh. He says, "Sheikir Shlom Lashon Kodesh al yedei Targum, v'zal shigyonis ki shigyonis b'chinas Targum." Because what is a chet b'shoigig? A chet b'shoigig is Targum. It means it's a mixture. Is shoigig a sin or not a sin? Well, we know that when a person does in his doinus, a person does something, b'chavana, is a zodan. It's totally bad. But shoigig is half good and half bad. Like, let's say that somebody did a malacha that is osur on Shabbos, and he either forgot that this malacha, he didn't know this malacha was osur on Shabbos, so he's shoigig. Or he knew this malacha is osur on Shabbos, but he forgot that today is Shabbos. So you have something which is a mixture of good and bad together. We said a klipas noiga is a mixture of good and bad together. The tardema, which is sleep, is a mixture of dimyonis and das together. It's tardema. It's not awake, a mitzvah, kedusha. It's not dead, which is doinus. It's a mixture. It's tardema. It's the in between. Targum ubchinas etzadat tovera. Targum constitutes etzadat tovera shemeoirav tovera. That good and bad are intermixed. V'chenu hashoigig, and this is what the shoigig is. Shesh vo gam ken tovera. That what? The demaisa is bad, but the kavana is good. You didn't have a kavana to make an avera. Okay. This lemaisa, before we get into, the Shmotes, B'ezrat Hashem, we'll do it next week. I want to just get a little bit into the nakuda of because this is lemaisa, the end of the text of the Torah itself. The pasuk of Tefillah L'Chavakuk comes to tell you that the Shlomis Lashon Kodesh happens through elevating the good from the Klipas Noiga, from the Targum. The pasuk Hashem Shemacha Shemacha Yaresi, it tells you that you also need the Yira in order to perfect the Lashon Kodesh. And when you have the Lashon Kodesh, that awakens the force of Ma'aseh Bereshis, of all the combinations of dollars that exist and everything. And this is Lashon Kodesh with which the world was created. So here we are. We are in a state of Shleimus Lashon Kodesh. We hear about the face of the tzaddik. The Lashon Kodesh clears your face, opens up your face. It opens the face to you. It opens up the face of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to you. You are able to understand that which HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells you. This is crucial. Rabbeinu says in Torah Lamed Hey that a person needs to remember Olam Haba at all times. The first thing that a person does when he wakes up in the morning, he's supposed to remind himself, yo, dude, this world is not the only thing that there is. There's an Olam Haba. And then Rabbeinu says, as you go on and your das become bigger, you're able to start seeing how Kadosh Baruch Hu is talking to you with every single thing that is happening to you throughout your life. And the Rebbe says that this kind of Agdalas Hadas, understanding what Hashem is telling you, has to be, b'mida. Don't go on fantasizing. Now Hashem is telling me this, now Hashem is telling me that. That means this means that. This is not what it's about. The only thing that you need to do is you need to work on the kelim. Even the tzaddikim that hear the dibur from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're not saying that they are doing some kind of kavanas, they're doing, whatever it is that they're doing. What they're doing is masim tovim. Their good deeds create the dibur of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the message of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Torah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When you are looking and concentrating and doing good deeds, and you have a munah, Rabbeinu says in Torah Aleph, that everything that happens has a chokhmah in it. And you're looking for this chokhmah. You're not trying to guess what it is. You're not trying to surmise what it is. You're not trying to say this means this means that. You're just working on the malchus, on Yer Shamayim, lima Torah b'koyach. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is bringing you the message very, very clearly. And when HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings it to you clearly, you understand it. When you're trying to fathom what it is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling me here, you're applying your imagination. I saw green, so that means dollars, or I don't know, all kinds of demyonis. The best thing to do is, if you have a Rav, that you trust his avodas Hashem. You trust his koyach hamedama. It could be anybody, that is a serious person, like Nosson Maimon, or Chaim Kramer, or Kemer Shechter, or Simcha Bar-Lev, or Shimon Teichner. People, bigger people, above our pay grade. And when something has happened, what you do is you go and you ask them. What they have is what they call a birur medama. Their medama is clearer than yours. And with this, you come be'emunah pshuta. You ask her, I don't understand, what should I do? So when it is told to you clear, they get the message from, through Rabbeinu. If you want to hear the message of Rabbeinu, if you come to hear them, because I want to be dependent on them, because I want to know what they are, because they are great people, no matter how great they are, they will not give you the right answer. Here you have to lean on the koyach of the tzaddik. When you're asking somebody, when you're asking a Rav, what does this mean? What should I do? I have here Chalukas ha'etza, the main inyan of the Churban Beis HaMikdash that we're lamenting now in Chodesh Av, as we're stepping towards Tisha B'Av, is the Chalukas ha'etza. We're not sure what it is we're supposed to do. Should we do this way? Should we do that way? Should we get up and leave? Should we stay? Should we do this? Should we do that? Should we take the job? Should we let it go? All these things, this Chalukas ha'etza going this way and that way, this is the galus. Lachen gala ami bivli das. This is my people have gone on exile because of a lack of das. So when you have a certain kind of a suffix, and you go to one of Talmidei Rabbeinu, the reason why you're going to him, not because he specifically is a very smart person, I want to hear what he has to say, but rather, he is a Talmud who is closer to Rabbeinu than I am. He's worked on himself harder than I did. Not because he's smarter, because he worked harder. Because what I want to hear from him is the dibur of the tzaddik, the original Dibur Kodesh Baruch Hu. What does Kodesh Baruch Hu wants from me here? That's the main thing. Keep everything in perspective. We want to hear the Dibur from the mouth of the tzaddik. And whoever it is that we ask from Talmidei Rabbeinu, before you ask them, make a shtickle that says, I want to hear what Rabbeinu has to say. I want to hear the dibur of the tzaddik who receives the dibur of Kodesh Baruch Hu. Rabbeinu is active. Rabbeinu is with us. If you ask somebody for his opinion, just because he's a smart person, our Pinchas Grundman, he's a clever guy, let's talk to him. Don't talk to him. It has nothing to do with that. Has to do with how much avodas Hashem he has put into it. And whoever it is you're going to, what you need to do is you need to ask the Kodesh Baruch Hu, before you ask the Eitzah, I want to hear the Eitzah of Rabbeinu. I want to hear the Dibur that the Tzaddik heard from you. And then, Bezat Hashem, you'll never fail. Bezat Hashem, Ad Kan, for today. And